The Tsenkethi admiral's mocking laughter rang out across the bridge as the vidscreen displayed the pathetic human warship, until his tactical officer confirmed the horrifying truth. The puny ship was built with technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, and the humans were crazy enough to use it. In the Arcturus system, hidden from prying eyes, human engineer Nolan Roberts led a secret project constructing the ISS Prometheus, a vessel that would outmatch the mightiest warships of any alien race. Earth's survival hinged on the Prometheus. The hostile Tsenkethi were conquering the galaxy, enslaving world after world, and humanity was next on their list. Nolan wiped sweat from his brow as he oversaw the final, critical stages of the ship's construction. The Prometheus boasted revolutionary engines, weapons, and shields, conceived by human ingenuity and built with reverse-engineered alien tech. It was humanity's last, best hope. Suddenly alarms blared, and security feeds showed a firefight near the engineering section. Nolan raced through the corridors and found a saboteur locked in combat with his security team, a Tsenkethi spy posing as a worker. Nolan charged in and subdued the spy, demanding answers. The Tsenkethi agent spat out a revelation. They knew about the Prometheus and were coming to destroy it before it could be completed. Humanity's secret weapon was secret no more. The agent managed to transmit the shipyard's coordinates to the Tsenkethi fleet. As Nolan interrogated the spy, Admiral Vortis, the Tsenkethi commander, intercepted panicked human transmissions about the impending attack. He sneered in contempt, dismissing the Prometheus as a futile human attempt to challenge Tsenkethi supremacy. Nolan sent urgent updates to the United Terran Federation. The Tsenkethi were coming, and the Prometheus had to launch immediately. Reinforcements were dispatched, but would not arrive in time. It was up to Nolan, his crew, and the Prometheus to hold the line against the massive Tsenkethi armada bearing down on them. The shipyard became a frenzy of activity as engineers and technicians scrambled to finish the job. Nolan's gaze remained locked on the Prometheus, knowing the fate of Earth and humanity rested in the untested ship's hands. Would this technological marvel be enough to stop the Tsenkethi's galactic conquest, or would it go down in flames and consign humanity to ruin? The battle ahead would decide it all. The Tsenkethi fleet emerged from hyperspace, a swarm of menacing ships that filled the view screens of the human shipyard. Admiral Vortis's flagship loomed at the center, dwarfing the Prometheus in size and apparent firepower. "Surround the shipyard!" Vortis barked to his crew. "I want that puny human vessel cut off from any escape." The Tsenkethi ships took up positions, their weapons trained on the Prometheus. Vortis opened a comm channel, his scarred face appearing on the screens of the human ship. "Attention, human scum," he sneered. "Your pathetic attempt to challenge the might of the Tsenkethi Empire ends here. Surrender now, and I may consider sparing your miserable lives." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Nolan stood firm, his eyes locked on Vortis's image. "You underestimate us, Admiral," he replied, his voice steady. "The Prometheus represents the best of human engineering and innovation. We will not surrender to the likes of you." Vortis threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Foolish human. You think your single, unimpressive ship can stand against the full might of the Tsenkethi fleet? I will enjoy watching you burn." With a flick of his wrist, Vortis signaled his ships to attack. A barrage of missiles and energy weapons streaked towards the Prometheus, the shipyard's defenses struggling to intercept them. But as the Tsenkethi onslaught reached the Prometheus, the ship's advanced shields flared to life, absorbing the incoming fire without so much as a shudder. Nolan smiled grimly, his finger hovering over the weapon's controls. "Our turn," he said, pressing the button. The Prometheus unleashed a salvo of plasma torpedoes, the bright blue projectiles streaking through space and slamming into the Tsenkethi ships. Explosions blossomed along their hulls, the powerful human weapons tearing through their shields and armor. On his flagship, Vortis gripped the chairs of his command chair, his eyes widening in disbelief as he watched his ships take damage. "Impossible," he muttered. "No human technology could be this advanced." Realizing the true capabilities of the Prometheus, Vortis changed tactics. "All ships, engage the human vessel at close range," he roared. overwhelm its defenses with sheer numbers and firepower. The Tzenkethi fleet surged forward, surrounding the Prometheus and pounding it with a relentless barrage of weapons fire. The human ship shuddered under the assault, its shields straining to hold back the tide of destruction. But even as the Prometheus buckled, its own weapons continued to fire, picking off Tzenkethi ships one by one. Nolan and his crew worked in perfect coordination, outmaneuvering the alien vessels and exploiting weaknesses in their formations. "Divert power to shields," Nolan shouted over the din of battle, "and keep those torpedoes firing." The bridge crew responded with crisp efficiency, their hands flying over consoles as they struggled to keep the ship in the fight. On his flagship, Vortis pounded his fist against the armrest, his frustration boiling over into rage. "Ram them," he bellowed. "Cripple that ship, no matter the consequences." The Tzenkethi flagship surged forward, its massive bulk aimed directly at the Prometheus. But Nolan had anticipated the move, and with a deft touch of the controls, he sent the Prometheus into a sharp dive, narrowly avoiding the collision. The Tzenkethi flagship, unable to correct its course in time, plowed into another Tzenkethi ship, the two vessels erupting in a catastrophic explosion that sent shockwaves through the entire fleet. "Now's our chance," Nolan yelled, seizing the moment of chaos. "All weapons, full barrage!" The Prometheus unleashed a devastating salvo of missiles and energy beams, the force of the attack cutting through the disarrayed Tzenkethi ranks like a scythe through wheat. Tzenkethi ships crumpled and exploded under the onslaught, their formations shattering as they struggled to regroup. Just as the tide of battle seemed to turn decisively in favor of the humans, a new wave of ships dropped out of hyperspace, reinforcements from the United Terran Federation, led by the imposing figure of Admiral Sinclair. "Sorry we're late to the party," Sinclair's voice crackled over the comm. "Looks like you started without us." The fresh Terran ships tore into the Tzenkethi fleet, their combined firepower overwhelming the alien vessels. Faced with the sudden shift in odds, the Tzenkethi lines crumbled, their ships breaking formation and fleeing back into hyperspace. In the sudden silence that followed, Nolan let out a long, shuddering breath, his hands shaking as he released the controls. They had done it. Against the odds, the Prometheus had held the line. "Impressive work, Captain," Admiral Sinclair said, his face appearing on the display. "The Prometheus has proven itself more than a match for the Tzenkethi, but don't think this is the end. They'll be back, and they'll be looking for revenge." Nolan nodded, his eyes hardening with willpower. "We'll be ready for them, sir. The Prometheus and her crew will stand against any threat to humanity." As the shipyard came back to life around them, repair crews rushing to patch up the battle damage, Nolan looked out at the stars, knowing that this victory was only the beginning. The Prometheus had shown what humanity was capable of, but the war against the Tzenkethi was not nearly finished. And the Prometheus would be there, leading the charge, a shining beacon of human resilience and commitment in the face of an implacable foe. The victory over the Tzenkethi fleet left a bittersweet taste in Nolan's mouth. As he stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the last of the enemy ships vanish into hyperspace, he knew this was not nearly finished. "We bought ourselves some time," Admiral Sinclair's voice crackled over the comms. "But Vortis will be back, and he'll bring hell with him." Nolan nodded grimly. "The Prometheus is a game-changer, sir, but we can't rely on one ship to defend humanity." "What do you propose, Captain?" Nolan took a deep breath. "We need a fleet, Admiral. Prometheus-class ships built with the same tech that let us beat the Tzenkethi today." There was a pause on the other end. Then, "Ambitious, Roberts. But you're right. I'll give the order. Every shipyard in human space will be working round the clock." Over the next weeks, Nolan found himself constantly on the move. He visited shipyards across a dozen systems, overseeing the construction of the new fleet. The work was grueling, with countless sleepless nights spent poring over schematics and test results. "We can't cut corners," he told a group of engineers on Europa. "Every bolt, every circuit, it all has to be perfect. The Tzenkethi won't give us a second chance." Meanwhile, light years away, Admiral Vortis paced the bridge of his flagship. His scales were dull with stress, his movements twitchy and agitated. "How?" he snarled at his officers. "How did those human vermin defeat us?" "Their ship," one of his subordinates ventured. "It was unlike anything we've encountered before." Vortis whirled on him. "Then we find out everything about it. I want scouts, spies, whatever it takes." Back in human space, alarms blared across the New Mars shipyard. Nolan sprinted to the command center, heart pounding. "Tzenkethi sighting," the watch officer reported. "A small ship, probably a scout. It jumped out as soon as we detected it." Nolan's fists clenched. "They're probing our defenses. We need to speed up production." But it wasn't enough. Weeks later, as Nolan supervised the final stages of a new Prometheus-class cruiser, an urgent message came through. "Captain Roberts," Admiral Sinclair's voice was tense. "We've uncovered a Tzenkethi spy in the Ganymede shipyard. They know our production schedules, our defensive capabilities, everything." Nolan felt the blood drain from his face. "They'll attack before we're ready." "Agreed. I'm ordering all ships to launch immediately, completed or not. It's our only chance." The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. Half-finished ships were hurriedly prepped for battle, crews scrambling to their stations. Nolan took command of the Prometheus once more, knowing they'd need every advantage to survive what was coming. Space rippled as the Tzenkethi fleet dropped out of warp. Nolan's breath caught in his throat at the sight. Hundreds of ships, gleaming with alien weaponry, filled the view screen. Admiral Vortis's face appeared on the main display, his expression a mixture of rage and triumph. "Did you really think you could challenge the might of the Tzenkethi Empire, humans? Your pathetic fleet will burn." Nolan's hands tightened on the command chair. "All ships, battle formations. Remember your training. We may be outnumbered, but we're not outgunned. Let's show these bastards what humanity can do." The two fleets clashed in a fury of weapons fire and explosions. Nolan called out orders rapid fire, coordinating the human ships with practiced ease. They might not be fully equipped, but the advanced Prometheus tech gave them an edge. A Tzenkethi cruiser exploded under concentrated fire from 3 human ships. Another tried to flank the Prometheus, only to be caught in a devastating crossfire. On his flagship, Vortis raged at his crew. "How are they doing this? Destroy them." But the tide was turning. The human ships, though fewer in number, were inflicting disproportionate damage on the Tzenkethi fleet. Vortis watched in disbelief as his carefully laid plans crumbled around him. "All ships fall back," he finally ordered, his voice raw with fury. "Regroup at Rally Point Beta." As the Tzenkethi fleet retreated, a ragged cheer went up across the human ships. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had held the line. Nolan allowed himself a small smile, but he knew the war was just the beginning. "All ships, begin damage assessment. We need to be ready for when they return." On the Tzenkethi homeworld, Vortis knelt before the high command, his head bowed in shame. I have failed you," he said, voice barely above a whisper. The Supreme Commander's voice was cold. "Yes, Vortis, you have. But we will not make the same mistake again. Gather every ship, every soldier we have. We will crush these humans once and for all." As Nolan oversaw repairs to the fleet, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Tzenkethi would be back, stronger than ever. But humanity would be ready. They had to be. The fate of their entire species hung in the balance. The stark silence of space shattered as the Tzenkethi dreadnought emerged from the swirling gases of the Orion Nebula. Its massive form blotted out the stars, dwarfing even the largest human vessels. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Nolan Roberts felt his breath catch in his throat. "My God," he whispered, eyes wide as he took in the sheer scale of the enemy vessel. Admiral Sinclair's voice crackled over the comms, tense but unwavering. "All ships, battle formations. This is it, people. Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment." The human fleet spread out, Prometheus-class ships taking point. Nolan's fingers flew over the controls, priming weapons and diverting power to shields. The air on the bridge crackled with nervous energy. A harsh, guttural voice boomed across all frequencies. Humans. Admiral Krath's face filled the view screen, his scales glinting in the harsh light of his bridge. Your defiance ends here. Witness the might of the Tsenkethi Empire and despair. The dreadnought's weapons flared to life, lances of searing energy slicing through space. Human ships scattered, desperately evading the barrage. Nolan watched in horror as two cruisers vanished in blinding explosions. Return fire, Sinclair ordered. All ships, concentrate on that monster's shield generators. The Prometheus fleet unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma torpedoes and energy beams slammed into the dreadnought's shields, creating a dazzling light show. But when the barrage ended, the massive ship remained unscathed. Krath's laughter echoed through the comms. Is that all? Pathetic. The dreadnought's main cannons opened up, each blast vaporizing a human ship. Nolan's hands tightened on the controls as he watched the fleet's numbers dwindle. This isn't working, he muttered, mind racing. Then, an idea sparked. Admiral Sinclair, we need to get inside that thing. Hit it where it's vulnerable. You're talking about a suicide mission, Roberts, Sinclair replied, his voice grim. Nolan nodded, even though the Admiral couldn't see him. Maybe, but it's our only shot. There was a long pause. Then, do it. Take whatever ships and personnel you need. We'll create a diversion. Nolan quickly assembled his strike team, briefing them as they prepped for launch. We'll use modified shield breaker torpedoes to punch a hole in their defenses. Once we're inside, we fight our way to the reactor core and weapons systems. The strike force launched, a handful of Prometheus ships against the behemoth dreadnought. They weaved through the chaos of battle, dodging friendly and enemy fire alike. Nolan's heart pounded as they closed in on their target. Now, he shouted, fire shield breakers! The specialized projectiles streaked ahead, detonating against the dreadnought's shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a small shimmer appeared in the energy field. There's our opening! All ships punch through! Nolan's strike force plunged into the breach, alarms blaring as they scraped past the failing shields. They crash-landed in a massive hangar bay, the screech of tearing metal filling the air. As Nolan and his team emerged from their battered ships, they found themselves face-to-face with a horde of Tsenkethi soldiers. The aliens charged, brandishing wicked-looking energy weapons. Push through, Nolan yelled, firing his rifle. We need to reach the core! The humans fought tooth and nail, slowly advancing through the dreadnought's winding corridors. Every step was bought with blood, both human and Tsenkethi. Nolan watched good men and women fall, but pressed on, knowing the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Finally, they reached the massive chamber housing the dreadnought's power core. Nolan and his remaining team set to work, planting explosives and sabotaging critical systems. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently. Nolan stumbled, nearly falling into a yawning chasm of machinery. He grabbed the console to steady himself, eyes widening as he saw the tactical display. They're going to ram us into the fleet, he realized aloud. Krath's going to take us all out in one shot. In that moment, Nolan knew what he had to do. He turned to his team, voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at his gut. Get back to the ships, I'll handle this. But sir, one of his officers protested. Nolan cut him off. That's an order, go! As his team retreated, Nolan raced to the dreadnought's auxiliary control center. His fingers flew over alien controls, rerouting power and overriding systems. He could feel the massive ship changing course, veering away from the human fleet. A harsh voice rang out behind him. You! Nolan turned to see Admiral Krath, the Tsenkethi commander's eyes blazing with fury. But it was too late. The dreadnought's course was set, its shields were down, and its weapons were offline. As Krath lunged for him, Nolan allowed himself a small smile. He had done it. Earth was safe. The last thing Nolan Roberts saw was the approaching wall of human ships, their weapons primed and ready to deliver the killing blow to the crippled dreadnought.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.